All right, this is part 2 of section 9.2. We are talking about using reference angles to find sum and difference identities. So what you want to look for are these angles right here to use within your sum and difference identities. So for like this one, if we try to find sine of 165, well, I can do sine of 165 and set that equal to sine of 120 plus 45. 120 is right here. It has a reference angle of 60, which is one of our special triangles. Okay, so this will have sine of 120 cosine of 45 plus cosine of 120 times sine of 45. Okay, now we know cosine and sine of 45. We use that a lot in the first part of the section. Oops. Those are just square root of 2 over 2. So now what I need is, this is 120. This right here is 60. So this is -1, square root of 3, and 2. So cosine of 120, x over r. X is -1, r is 2. So this is -1/2. And then sine of 120 is y over r, or square root of 3 over 2. So square root of 3 over 2. So multiply together, we have square root of 6 over 4 minus the square root of 2 over 4, or the square root of 6 minus the square root of 2, all over 4. And that will be our final answer. Okay, now let's look at the sum and difference for tangent. Now tangent is going to have fractions here. And notice if you are adding two angles, the top part will be the same, they'll be adding, but the bottom part will be different, it'll be subtracting. Same thing over here. If you have two angles subtracted from each other, the top part will be the same, but the bottom part will be different. This will be adding. Okay, so let's try these. Say we try to find tangent of 105. So tangent of 105, we could say that's the same thing as tangent of 60 plus 45. So we're going to need this formula, tangent of alpha plus tangent of beta divided by 1 minus tangent of alpha times tangent of beta. Okay, so that's going to be tangent of 60 plus tangent of 45 divided by 1 minus tangent of 60 times tangent of 45. Okay, now I need to find two special triangles. We'll find 60 first. This is square root of 3. This is 1. This is 2. We know that tangent of 60, this is going to be y over x. So y, square root of 3 over 1. So this will just be the square root of 3. And then, if we look at 45, we'll change these. So 45 be 1, 1, square root of 2, tangent of 45, y over x. Y is 1, x is 1, so this will be 1. So we have the square root of 3 plus 1 over 1 minus the square root of 3 times 1. So we have the square root of 3 plus 1 over 1 minus the square root of 3. Now before I say, hey, this is my final answer, I can't say that because I have a square root in the bottom, so I need to rationalize this. So notice it's not just a square root, it's 1 minus the square root of 3. So I need to multiply this by the conjugate. So times 1 plus the square root of 3 over 1 plus the square root of 3. Multiplying by the conjugate is really just taking whatever this is and then changing the sign. That's the conjugate. Okay, so I'm going to do square root of 3 times 1. So this times this, square root of 3. Square root of 3 times square root of 3, so plus 3. 1, let me use a different color. 1 times 1 plus 1. 1 times square root of 3 plus the square root of 3. And then 1 times 1, 1. 1 times the square root of 3, square root of 3. Negative square root of 3 times 1, negative square root of 3. Negative square root of 3 times square root of 3, negative 3. Okay, so I have 2 square root of 3, because there's a 1 in front of these. You just add the number in front of the square root, plus 4 over, my square root of 3's go away, so 1 minus 3, so that's going to be negative 2. Okay, if I take a 2 out of the top part here, I'm left with a square root of 3 plus 2. Now my 2's will cancel out, but don't get rid of that negative. So I'll have a negative square root of 3 plus 2, which that's the same thing as negative square root of 3 minus 2, or you could write negative 2 minus the square root of 3. And these would be your final answers. Okay, now they're asking us to simplify this expression. Now look at this and see which sum or difference identity this goes along with, either sine, cosine, or trig. Now, not trig, tangent. Now since it doesn't have any fractions, it's not tangent. And notice we've got a sine and then a cosine, and then a cosine and then a sine. So they're not the same on both sides, they alternate. So this has got to be sine. But now we got to figure out, is it a difference or a sum for sine? We had a negative in the equation that they gave us. And look, we have a negative right here. So they used a difference identity or formula for sine. So we need to use that same formula right here. Okay, so our alpha is 40 and our beta is 160. Okay, so sine of alpha minus beta. So this is sine of 40 minus 160, which that gives us sine of 120, negative 120. Because sine is an odd trig function, pull that negative to the front. Okay, sine of 120, we know that the reference angle of 120 is 60. So 1 square root of 3 and 2, that needs to be negative. Sine we know is y over r, so square root of 3 over 2. Keep that negative out in front here. So your final answer is negative square root of 3 over 2. And that's it.